All right, our next guest is an actor with a legacy firmly secured throughout iconic staples of film and television. We're talking General Behringer in War Games, Uncle Bob in Urban Cowboy. He has shared the screen with Clint Eastwood in Any Which Way You Can. I was introduced to him as Maurice on Northern Exposure, which he received an Emmy nomination for.
Hmm.
One Tree Hill fans know him as the coach of the Tree Hill Ravens. Better Call Saul fans know him as Everett Acker. There's also Stir Crazy, MASH, Dallas, Modern Family, The Ranch on Netflix, of course, No Country for Old Men,
That's vanity.
and literally over 200 more roles spanning 45 busy years as an actor. Mr. Barry Corbin, thank you very much for taking the time to talk to us today.
Well, thank you. I'm glad to be here.
As you said, let's jump right into it. Now, Barry, it was in your late 30s that you broke into acting with your first major film, Urban Cowboy, hit in theaters in 1980 as you were rounding the age of 40. Now, we read that you studied theater arts in college, appearing in a number of plays. So, how long had you been acting, and how long had acting been an ambition of yours, and really what sparked your interest in it?
Well, let's see. I've been acting about, I started getting paid about 60 years ago.
It was also in 1980. You played the Warden in Stir Crazy. This was with Richard Pryor, Gene Wilder. What was it like working with them?
Well, they were a trip, all right. We did most of our shoot in maximum security at Arizona State Prison in Florence, Arizona, and each time we'd go through a gate, we went through, I think, a series of about 4 gates. Each time we went through a gate and the one behind us slammed shut with a clang, Richard would do that. And by the time we got to where we were going, he was like this. He went and sat in the corner and just watched people. And Gene got out there and started playing basketball with all these felons. There were killers and all kinds of things. And I was the only guy down in the yard who was wearing a suit. Everybody else was wearing prison clothes, and I was wearing a suit because I was the warden. And so everybody told me that they were in there under false pretenses. There was one man came up to me and he said, "You've got to help me. You've got to. I'm in here for 40 years for possession of less than an ounce of marijuana." I said, that seems a little excessive. Let me talk to somebody about it and see what we can do. I talked to the guard about it, and he said, well, he was in for 6 months in the county jail, and he forgot to tell you he killed a man in there.
Oh, that thing. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, well, a little more sense.
Yeah.
And another fellow was, he was an old man, and he was standing there lifting weights. He had these heavy weights that he was lifting all day. And people left him alone. Nobody talked to him. And I walked past him one day. I walked past him several times. And I could sense that he was looking at me, but he didn't say anything. And finally, I went over and stood beside him. I said, sir, do you mind if I ask you a question? And he said, not at all. And all the time, he didn't pause lifting these heavy weights. And I said, how long have you been in here? He said, coming up to 48 years. I said, well, my God, how long are you in here for? He said, in 2 more years, they've got to release me. And I said, well, what are you going to do? That'll be 50 years you've been out of circulation. He said, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I said, well, what are you going to do? He said, I don't know, but I'm going to be the strongest damn 75 years old.
Oh, man.
So I expect probably he came out and he looked around, saw what kind of mess we were in. And he probably went in and found the first clerk in the 7-Eleven and just beat the hell out of him and went back to prison.
Yeah. Yeah.
Brooks
Yeah.
syndrome, Shawshank Redemption. That was amazing. Now, still in the year 1980, you played Fat Zach in Any Which Way You Can with starring Clint Eastwood. Now, being a real life cowboy yourself and a lover of westerns, how did it feel landing such a role with the Mr. Good, Bad, and Ugly himself, Mr. Eastwood?
That was very interesting. It's the only time in my life that I've ever had a situation where the first time that I worked with Clint was he was jogging down the street. I was riding behind him in my Cadillac, and the other guys were there, and they had the window, my driver's side window, replaced with some candy glass,
Mm-hmm.
And we're driving along, and we couldn't replace that candy glass because we didn't have time. We were on a limited time deal. So he's jogging along, and I just thought, oh, the guy's jogging up there. And then he realized, he looks back and he realizes we're following him. He runs back and he tries to open the door, and then he's supposed to knock the glass out of the window and then pull me out of the car, and then draw back like that. And my thought was, when he looked at me, he went, well, that's Clint Eastwood. And then I went ahead and said my line. And I thought, well, that's not going to be usable. Well, they used it anyway. That's not what I was thinking. I mean, I wasn't thinking that I was scared of him. I was thinking Clint Eastwood is going to hit me.
Yeah.
What an honor.
Yeah.
Be a nice thing to happen.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Now, speaking of westerns, let's talk about No Country for Old Men for a minute. You play Ellis in the film. There's a quote on your IMDb page that reads, you said, I think for the last 15, 20 years or so, Hollywood has underestimated the appeal of the Western. So how would you compare No Country to classic films in the Western genre?
Well, that was an interesting thing that happened. I was sitting at home, and my manager called me. I'd heard about this No Country for Old Men, and I didn't really know anything about it, except my son auditioned for it about 6 months before they called me. And so I knew basically that there was a thing called that. And I said, well, I'm an old man, and it takes place in Texas, so why don't they call me, I wonder? Well, they never did. And finally, just about a month before I was supposed to, they were supposed to start shooting, my manager called and said, you've got an offer to do one scene in this movie. I don't know if you want to do it or not. It's only one scene, but it is with Tommy Lee Jones, and the Coen brothers are directing it, and they've written it. It's based on a Cormac McCarthy novel. Well, I hadn't read the novel, and I had to go to Kansas to do a short movie before I did that. And so I didn't have a chance to read the novel. I was in Kansas riding a horse it is a little short movie called Trail End. And it had basically me and a horse. That is basically the whole movie. We were riding across Kansas, and I had two scenes with people. The rest of it is just me and the horse.
Nice.
So I was obviously pretty busy during that time. Didn't have a chance to read much, but I did read the script. When they sent me the script, I said, well, let me see the script. I started reading it. I kept wondering, well, where's this Ellis character? I read, and there's all this, shooting people with one of these bolt guns that they kill cattle with in the slaughterhouses, various things. And I thought, well, this is bloody. I don't know if I want to do this.
Yeah.
And then I got to that scene, and I read it, and I said, whoa. I went back and I read it again, and I called my manager up, and I said, man, this scene is the movie. Sure, I'll do it, of course.
Right.
Because it explains the whole movie.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so I did, but I had to go to go to New Mexico. They were doing pre-production in New Mexico, and I had to go there and do a rehearsal, what they called a rehearsal with Tommy Lee, and which our rehearsal consisted of going in with the Coen brothers and just doing the scene. So that's what we did. We went in and we ran through the scene, and they said, "Okay, that's fine. Let's go to lunch." And coincidentally, I think it's Joel told me that my son, who'd come in audition for him 5 or 6 months before, they said it was between him and the other guy that got the part, and they needed somebody who was not dark and didn't have dark hair. So they cast this blonde kid that played the part. He gets strangled first by Javier. You know, he came in and got chains around his neck, strangled him. So that's the part my son was up for. And he said it was just a matter of look. And Tommy Lee said, "Well, don't tell him that because he'll dye his hair." Well, no, I'm not going to tell him. When I got there, we did that, and then we went away, and then I went and did that movie in Kansas, and then came back, and they had to shoot my movie in the day after that I wrapped in the other one, so they had to charter a plane, fly me down from Dighton, Kansas to Marfa, Texas, which neither place has an airport, you know. And so they chartered a plane, flew me down there, and they had a big, pretty hefty pilot. And I wanted to ask him when he had his last physical, but I was afraid that I might insult him. I was in there by myself with him. That was it. And we made it. And the next day I got up and we went through the scenes and went through it. And an interesting thing about it was there were rattlesnakes up under that house. And these women came in with all these cats. And I said, "Don't let these cats out of here. You never see them again." As Tommy Lee walks in the door, first thing he did, he walks in the door. You see a cat run out beside him, run out the door. Never saw that cat again. That's a pretty primitive deal.
You were speaking about the Coen brothers. Were you familiar with their work prior to this? And if so, what was your favorite Coen brothers film?
Oh, sure. I was familiar with them. I liked Old Brother, Where Art Thou was one of them.
Oh, Clooney. Yeah, Clooney.
I liked Blood Simple when I first saw that. That's the first one I saw of theirs. And I've liked all their work pretty much, you know. And I when I went in, I was expecting to be there'd be, you know, a lot of notes and things. But we'd do a scene, and then they'd look at each other, and one of them would go, and the other one would go, "All right, let's do it again." So we do it again. And that's the only direction I got, or Tommy got.
Just do it again.
Got in it, and we had a break for lunch finally. And Tommy said, "Well, what do you think about these guys?" I said, "I don't know. They haven't talked to me. What do you think of them?" This is the first time Tommy had worked with them too.
Yeah.
And he said, "Well, I don't know." And I said, "Well, let's just keep going, see how we do." And we finished that day, and we had to come back and do a couple of pickup scenes the next morning. And I left, went out of town. But I asked, I think it's Ethan, maybe it's Joel. I don't remember which one. But I said, "Do you guys ever give anybody directions?" And he said one of the smartest things a director's ever said to me. He said, "If we cast it right, we don't have to."
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was. I took that as a compliment, but and then I saw Tommy right after it was released, and he said, "Well, we were good." Yeah, we were good. All we said about it.
Tommy, that's a good Tommy Lee Jones impression right there. Now, with the Coen brothers, you've worked with a lot of great writers and directors over the years, Coen brothers included. What do you think sets a great filmmaker apart from the rest?
They listen. They listen, and they pick up things that are going on in the actor's head, and you don't talk about it a whole lot. You listen to you. I listen to them, and they listen to me, and it's a collaboration, but it's almost a collaboration without language. It's an ESP thing. You know, you either connect or you don't connect.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm lucky in that I can connect with most people. There's some people I just can't connect with. There was one director that I was working with. We were doing a scene, and he said, it just started into the scene. He said, cut. No, wait. Don't make that face. And I said, what? He said, don't make that face. And I said, well, this is the face you hired. He said, what do you mean, don't make that face? He said, well, the face you just made, don't make that face. I said, well, do you think that I stand there when I'm shaving in the morning and practice faces to make? I don't. Tell me to think something different, think something else. And he said, okay, think something else. All right, roll it. So I did the same thing, and he said, brilliant. Well, he's just looking for something to say, and he confused the hell out of me. So
I was going to say this next question should probably have went towards the director and not Tommy Lee Jones. But speaking of Tommy Lee Jones, I want to know about that director. But speaking of Tommy Lee Jones, now the responses range from great to terrible when co-stars are asked about their experience with Tommy Lee Jones. Where would your personal experience land within that spectrum?
We've been friends for a long time. I've known Tommy since probably the early '80s. You know, we did a picture together called "Stranger on My Land." Television picture. It's Tommy Lee Ben Johnson played his father, and I played a marshal who was having to throw them off part of their land, and I didn't like what I had to do, but I was doing it anyway.
Yeah.
And so I've known Tommy for I don't know how long is that. That's about 40 years, I guess. And so we're friends and know each other pretty well. He's a little cranky, but he's all right.
That's what I figured. I figured it was just people that didn't really appreciate that kind of personality that is just straightforward and
well, he is straightforward. He's not quite as straightforward as Wilford Brimley was, but he comes close.
I think Sam Gerard is the character he played that probably mostly mimics who he is in real life. I think that's really Tommy Lee Jones, Sam Gerard.
No Country for Old Men, to me, it feels more like a parable than a straightforward story. What do you think the message is in the movie?
That we all meet our match somewhere along the line. You've got to either accept it or change your direction.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the basis of it. I really don't have any more about it than that, because like I said, I only worked on it one day.
So. Yeah. Now, being that one day, that long day, because if they're going to get you for one day, remember they said, John said he got me one day, John can't do it, he come all day. All right, is there a particular memory that stands out from the one day that you were on set, whether it be with another actor or a set member, crew member, any particular memory?
Like I said, the place where we were shooting is very primitive. I don't know how they found it. It's out there in the middle of the desert outside of Marfa. And you had to go off the main road and go up a dirt road. I wouldn't be able to find it again, but it was exactly right for what we were supposed to have. Mm-hmm. And the interesting thing about it, later on, I worked with John Badham, who directed War Games. And he said, I had to wait until the credits to see who played Ellis. He said, I didn't recognize you. He said, you look like something that just grew up in the middle of the dirt out there in the desert. I said, well, thing of it was they had me. They had it in the book, I guess, and in the script that I had one eye that was white. That didn't have any pupil in it. And they talked about doing that. I said, no, we don't need to do that. I can just play the guy, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So I just I didn't have any makeup. Got a little dirt, you know. That's it.
Yeah.
Didn't have any makeup at all.
So you got to make that face. The same face you had, you got to make that face, and they were fine with it.
Don't make a face.
Before we move on, is there anything else that you'd like to share about the No Country for Old Men production? Like I know, again, you said you were there for a day, but
I went in for rehearsal. I ran into Josh Brolin, and I had known Josh from the days of this little series called the Young Riders.
Mm-hmm.
He played Bill Hickok in that, and we'd known each other sort of for that time. So I ran into him in the bar, and we proceeded to sit there and talk. Tommy Lee came in for a little bit. He had a couple of drinks with us, and then Javier came in, and he had a couple of drinks with us. So if I'd known Javier, if I'd seen this movie before I met him, I wouldn't have had a drink with him. I'd have skinned back to my room. But he's a very nice fella, and so I met a bunch of these people, and the lady that played Josh's wife in the movie, has a very heavy Scottish brogue in real life. And I thought she did a Texas accent pretty well. I thought she fooled me. But in real life, she sounded like a woman right out of the Highlands.
Nice. Amazing.
Now, let me ask you this. Thinking about when you began acting, if we can go back to that time, even to your most recent role, is there anything in your approach to the craft that you've improved on throughout the years, learning and building on those experiences on set?
No, I start over each time, but I mean, you've got a method. Everybody's got a method. They say, talk about method actors. Well, I don't know what that means because everybody's got a method.
Mm-hmm.
My method is to read the script as a story, like you're reading a novel, you know.
Yeah.
As a story. And then let it rest a little bit, think about the story. The next day you read it and you think about where the character you're going to play fits into the story, how he propels the story, moves the story forward. If he doesn't move the story forward, he's going to be on the cutting room floor, so you don't want to do it unless you just want the money.
Mm-hmm.
Then you read it and think about the beats that your character has that causes that propulsion forward. And then I kind of narrow it down from there and go for what the action is, what the thought is, and just mix it all in. And so then I think about what do I have in common with this person. So I play everything I have in common with this person as me. Then I think, what do I not have in common? Well, I'm not generally a murderer. So I think about swatting a fly. You think, well, yeah, you're killing something. Okay. So you've got to divorce. If you're a murderer, you've got to divorce that person's humanity from any commonality with you.
Mm-hmm.
Which is generally, if you're a mass murderer, you would divorce. You would think of yourself as superior to anybody else.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So that's those kind of thoughts. You go through all.
It sounds like you have a very technical approach. I like that.
Like a ball of clay, restarting or something.
And the things you can't identify with, to at least find a parallel that you can identify with.
Yeah. Well, people always say, well, you just go and play yourself. Well, as much as I can, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like some critic said about Spencer Tracy, said Tracy always plays himself. And he said, who the hell should I play, Gable? It's kind of fruitless to play somebody else, you know.
Yeah, yeah. So with over 220 credits, is there a particular role or project that stands out to you as the highlight of your career?
Oh, many of them, yeah. But you know, I can't pick one because that's like picking your favorite kid. You know, I love all of them, but some of them are ugly.
All right. All right. So let me come at it let me play antagonist here. Let me ask you this. Is there a role or a character type that you haven't played yet that you'd like a chance to take a swing at?
Well, if I wasn't so lazy, I'd like to play King Lear. But I'm a little too lazy for that now. You become lazier after you're 75, you know.
I'm looking forward to it.
Me too.
All right, we read another quote from you where you said, "For an actor, you're rejected 8 to 10 times a day. All you've got to sell is yourself. You're not selling products. They're not turning down a car. They're turning you down, and most people can't handle that. Most people are essentially not set up that way." Has your reaction to rejection changed over your career, or were you like thick-skinned from the start, like due to your military background?
No, I think I used to take it more personally than I do. Anymore, I don't even know. You know, I don't audition much. People call me, and if they want me, they call my agent or manager or whoever I'm dealing with, and you know, make an offer usually. I don't mind auditioning, but I moved away from Hollywood so I wouldn't have to go in to every casting call there is.
Yeah.
I'm out to Texas, and I sit here and wait for them to call me.
Hey, with 220 roles, they should be able to determine whether or not you'd be right for their picture.
Well, I've decided that I've got my SAG pension and my after pension and my equity pension and my Social Security, so I don't have to work if I don't want to.
That's the sweet spot.
That is the dream.
Yeah.
That is the dream. Can I quote that? I want to say that one day.
Well, the whole secret to that is get old.
Hey, all right. You said it. Now I'm going to do it because you said it. Now, let me ask you this. You mentioned earlier that earlier in your career, like you used to take the rejections personal. So let me ask you this. What advice would you give to up and coming actors or even actors who've been doing it for a while who struggle with picking themselves back up after a rejection?
Well, I just don't, you know, if I'm up for something, they say, well, you're up for this. Okay, fine. I just put it out of my mind until they come up with the money and put it on the table, you know. That's the way you deal with rejection. You don't think about it.
Yeah.
Now
Stuff it down.
Way down. Yeah. Way down. Now, this may seem like a loaded question or, like I say, a two-part question, but let me ask you this. Is there a role that you really wanted but didn't get, or a role that you declined and you regretted it in hindsight?
No, for both of them. I've turned down parts that might have led my career in a different direction because I thought somebody else would do it better. As a matter of fact, sometimes I've read a part and I thought, well, my buddy, so-and-so over here would do it better. Maybe I'll recommend him. And so I do, I'll recommend another actor if I think he can do it better. I look for something that I can make my own and make a contribution to the production. There's some things that I could do, but I wouldn't make any difference in the production. It'd be somebody else could do it just as well or better. So I turned those down. I turned down one that's got too much cussing in it. I don't worry too much about it anymore because my grandmother and my mother died. And my kids are grown now, so I can say anything now.
That's so biggie to pass roles along. You're definitely not cut from the Hollywood cutthroat cloth.
How many people have we interviewed? No one said that.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a sort of a team player. I'm not out to cut anybody's throat. And some of them are out to cut mine, but I don't really care about them.
So, like I said in the last question, you served in the U.S. Marines. You're a real life cowboy yourself. I saw that you were inducted into like the Cowboy Hall of Fame in Texas or something like that. There's a picture of you in the museum, a painting.
I'm also in the museum in Oklahoma City, the National Cowboy Hall of Fame.
So I'm wondering, do you ever find yourself scoffing at people in the entertainment industry who have like an air of self-importance about what they do or the work that they do?
Oh yeah,
I could imagine.
Yeah, I've jumped on young people. Sometimes I was doing that One Tree Hill you mentioned before, and one of the actors said to an extra who sat down with us at the table, he said, "You can't sit with us." And so the extra walked off real kind of downcast. I said, that's about the ugliest thing I've seen anybody do. If you don't straighten yourself out, you're going to end up on the scrap heap somewhere. That kid might be the next Steven Spielberg.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know. You don't talk to people that way.
Right. Yeah.
You don't want to treat people bad. I mean, you're polite. It's like wearing a mask during all this pandemic. I never was scared I was going to catch this thing, but I wear a mask out of politeness to other people so I don't make them nervous.
Yeah.
Now, unless he was practicing his lines for Forrest Gump, can't sit here, he's a mean person. That's the only thing I can think of. And he was not practicing his lines for Forrest Gump when he told that extra that. Listen, we and him talk about this. Extras, actors, we all have to start somewhere. So it's all about how you treat people in life, not even in just acting. Just be a good person. And it's not that hard to be a good person.
Well, that's all you got. I mean, that's the main thing we all have to do. We all have to be kind people. Mm-hmm. Treat people with kindness. That's the whole problem in this country now, where everybody's divided up into camps. Mm-hmm. If we get together and talk, then we're all the same. We're all after the same thing. We're all after peaceful existence and friendliness.
There you go.
Most people are aggressive and mean because they're scared.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. People fear. They don't understand.
I'm too old to be scared of anything. Hell, they can't do anything. They're not going to eat me.
Okay. Now let me ask you this. I have to do this. I'm a real cowboy. Now, because you said you're a real cowboy. In 2012, you just mentioned you were inducted into the Texas Film Hall of Fame for your accomplishments. Now, let me ask you this. How did that feel being recognized like that, but especially in your home state?
Well, anytime you're recognized by your own people, that's more important than being recognized by strangers,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I never did feel like I fit in too well in the Hollywood crowd. I did all right. I got all right with them, but I always felt like I wanted to be back here among my own people. Mm-hmm. And when I got back here, it kind of helped me. People asked me if I lost any work by moving out of California and moving back to Texas. I said, yeah, probably, but it's work that I wouldn't want to do anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I don't know. You make your choices. You choose your own friends. You choose your. I try not to have any enemies, but if I've got an enemy, that's fine. He might be, I might be his enemy, but he's not my enemy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't hold any grudges against anybody.
Yeah, enemies take up way too much energy to have.
Right.
Why would you even want to have enemies?
Yeah, it's so simple when you put it like that.
If you get in politics, you're guaranteed if you win, the next day half your constituents are going to hate you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So why the hell would anybody do that who's sane? Nobody who's in politics.
That's the necessary caveat.
Right,
Who is sane? Yeah. So You played. This is the show where I remember first seeing you, Maurice Minifield, the hit TV series Northern Exposure. This was from 1990 to 1995, which, with the exception of One Tree Hill, is kind of like your longest running role in a series.
Well, it was my longest running role. One Tree Hill, the show lasted longer, but I only lasted for 3 years.
Mm-hmm. What was that experience like on working with on Northern Exposure, like on a project for that extended period of time with the same people?
It was wonderful to start with, and then we changed producers after the. I think we had 4 seasons with the original people, and then producers changed back in California. And for the next 2 seasons, which is the end of it, I think they killed it prematurely. I think they could have run another season or 2, but it became a different kind of a show. And I kept having arguments with them, and I finally ended up. I was the only one that was nominated for an Emmy the last season of the show, and they one of the producers down in Hollywood said, "Well, you can't go." And I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Well, you'll be working. You can't go to the Emmys." And I said, "Well, that's going to look good in the tabloids." Yeah. He said, "What do you mean?" I said, "It means I've got to publish this too." And he said, "Well, you can go, but we don't have it in our budget to have you a hotel and a limousine and all that stuff." I said, "Okay, fine. I'll fly down on Alaska Airlines, stay in the Holiday Inn or something, and I'll provide my own transportation to the Emmys." I said, "Okay." Well, then they caved in right at the last minute, got me a nice hotel room and got a limousine, bought me a plane ticket. But by this time, I'd already made plans. I'd called a friend of mine who's a wrangler out there. I said, "I need 2 horses that are, one of them needs to be bomb proof and the other one needs to be pretty gentle. I don't want something bucking with me, but we got to have, we need 2 horses." He said, "Yeah, I've got a couple of flashy looking horses." He said, "What else do you need?" I said, "I need a permit to ride horseback on the streets of Pasadena the night of the Emmys." He said, "What are you going to do?" I said, "I'm going to ride up to the Emmys horseback. Me and my daughter. I want my daughter to have a bomb-proof horse." So we made that arrangement, and then I didn't know how I was going to get rid of the horses. So we put the Wranglers in the limousine. Nice. We rode in horseback, my daughter and I, and my horse was a little nervous. So when we hit the red carpet and waited, we were getting off the horses and the Wranglers were coming up to get them. My horse raised his tail and dropped a little memento on the red carpet. Nice. And they ran off with him. And Army Orchard says, "Well, you picked an interesting way to come into the Emmys. Is there a story behind that?" And I said, "Well, apparently the producers and Universal and CBS and a bunch of them aren't making enough money selling coffee cups and T-shirts. They couldn't afford to get us a limousine, so I took the cheapest transport I could find."
That's awesome. That has got to be one of the most fantastic
unknown stories. Like I would, man.
You can't find that on the internet anywhere.
Not until now.
Yeah.
Hey-o. Universal said that they couldn't pick up any expenses for their nominees. I guess they hadn't been making enough money on the calendars and T-shirts and whatnot. So we decided we'd come in on the cheapest transport possible.
TTFT exclusive. We love it. It's like, okay, I'm working on the show. The show I got the award for tells me I can't go for. It's like, no, I got straight A's, Mom. Great, go back and do some homework. Okay.
I didn't work for Universal or CBS for about 10 years after that.
Wow.
But it's worth it.
So you don't make enemies, but you do learn lessons.
Now, Barry, more recently, you starred in Netflix's The Ranch from 2016 to 2020. Now, for someone who has seen all sides of the television industry, from a handful of channels to choose from when we all were much younger, to basic cable, to streaming services, in your mind, what has changed and what remains the same on the productions?
Well, the actual work is still the same. The difference is that we've got a completely shattered marketplace.
Mhm.
We've got where there used to be 3 or 4 major venues. Now there's, I don't know, several hundred.
Yeah.
So, they've got to split that money up. And so you don't get the money that you used to get. The ones that get all the money are the guys above the title. Is the producers, of course, they're getting theirs,
Hmm.
and director and the 1 or 2 or 3 stars. And then everybody else is getting the short shrift.
Hmm.
These low budget and ultra low budget deals in SAG, and you can work every day of the year and not make a living wage.
Mm.
Yeah, I'm in a group on Facebook called Cruise Stories with people that work in the industry, and a lot of them share their residual checks as like a joke. Like they'll take a picture of it. Like, look what they spent more on the paper for this.
2 cents.
Yeah, yeah, it's wild. We'd imagine that Sam Elliott is someone whose work you respect. What was it like working with him?
Sam, we've been friends for years. I love working with Sam.
Mm.
He's we're not only friends in the business, we're actually friends. We talk to each other periodically on the phone, do emails back and forth. So yeah, Sam and Catherine they as a matter of fact asked the National Cowboy Hall of Fame to present my induction into the Hall of Great Western Performers for me. So because I inducted both of them when they were inducted into it.
Another project on IMDb that I wanted to confirm or deny was because this one really sparked my interest. It has you, Dick Van Dyke, Louis Gossett Jr., and John Amos. A comedy about a group of elderly vets who play a spirited game of capture the flag, appropriately titled "Capture the Flag." This in 2018, I saw the last production update saying it was in pre-production. Is there any truth to that, or?
Well, there's still the possibility. We're all getting old, but there's still the possibility.
Okay.
They're still trying to pull it together. They don't like to make movies about old people anymore. They think the young people aren't going to go see them. Well, what they don't realize is there's a bunch of old people that won't go to the movies because they're making movies about monsters and space aliens, and they don't want to have nightmares.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is true. That's definitely true. Now, let me ask you this. And by the way, I would love to see that Louis Gossett Jr. I would just love to see. He was in Watchmen, by the way, Louis Gossett Jr.
And Mr. McDowell himself.
There you go. Good job, man. Let me ask you this. Now, you are an icon, but you've also worked with so many icons in the industry. If you were to choose one person to work with again, who would it be?
Oh gosh, I don't know. I'd like to work with most of the people I've worked with again. A lot of them are gone now. I'd love to work with Ben Johnson again. We had some ideas about some things to do before he died. Then that's kind of gone now. We wanted to do a remake or do an older version of The Rounders, that old movie with Glenn Ford and Henry Fonda.
Mm-hmm.
And we were going to be these old retired Bronx stompers who were running a gas station and arguing with each other all the time. I think that would have been a good one to do.
Yeah.
But Ben came up with that idea.
I want to see you and Tommy Lee Jones play the leads in a comedy about like 2 retired vets that start like a neighborhood watch and take it very seriously. I think that would be fantastic.
Get off my sidewalk.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Amazing. And let me ask you this. Of course, we're almost done here. And if you don't mind, I have to ask you this. This is not the question I was going to ask, but I have to ask because I'm pretty sure you can follow up. Can you do a follow up 16 and 17? And I'll ask this question real quick.
Sure.
Could you please tell me your top 3 westerns of all time, and please tell me Tombstone is in there somewhere.
Tombstone, yeah,
Yes.
Tombstone would be in the top 5, I guess.
Okay.
Well, one of them would be My Darling Clementine.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not because it was factually correct, because it wasn't. I mean, Doc Holliday didn't look anything like Victor Mature, but it was John Ford did such a good job with it, and Walter Brennan was such an evil old man Clanton that I just love that picture.
Mm-hmm.
Love The Searchers.
Mm-hmm.
Which is a story basically of Cynthia Ann Parker, and Red River would have to be in there somewhere, except for the end of it. I like the whole movie, but when they got to the end of it, they just had to figure out a way to end it without everybody killing each other.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Shane would be one.
I knew it. Negotiator Shane. I knew it. Sam Jackson tells him Shane. Go ahead.
And Tombstone, of course. Okay, that's 5.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there you go.
That's solid.
Hey, that's very solid. I love that. I thought we were gonna get a little Three Amigos in there, but I knew better.
I like Three Amigos. I like that movie where they fart all the way through it. That Mel Brooks movie.
Blazing Saddles?
Is it
Blazing
Blazing
Saddles, yeah.
Yeah, that's it. There you go. Good pull.
Gene Wilder.
Good
Yeah.
pull, man. Good pull.
With so much experience under your belt, we have our show is geared not just to people that love film, but aspiring filmmakers. We try to include information in there for them. What is the best piece of advice you could offer to aspiring actors?
The odds now, I mean, they've always been long odds that you're not going to be successful, really. But now the odds are even stacked against you more.
Mm-hmm.
So if you really want to be an actor, you ought to find something else you can do to make some money, and then do your acting in the community theater or in the little small venue thing. And then maybe that'd be something you do when you retire.
Yeah.
Because it's the odds are stacked against you on this business.
Mm-hmm.
If you're determined to do it, if this is the only thing you can do that'll make you happy, then the Lord bless you, and I'm all for you. But I wouldn't have any advice. I don't know. Everybody's got a different story.
Mm-hmm. That's some of the realest advice that we've heard.
Yeah.
My deal was I went to New York first and worked in theater for about 20 years before I ever stepped in front of a camera. And I think that was Walter Matthau once said, film acting is retirement acting. You pull out all the old tricks you learned in summer stock and use that.
Yeah, because you went to college for theater production, right? But your first role in a film wasn't until you were late 30s, right?
I was 30. I turned 39 during Urban Cowboy. Yeah.
I was going to ask you this now. Before we let you go, are there any projects that you can talk about that are in the works that we should keep an eye out for?
Well, the one that I'm going to start next month, I haven't had clearance to talk about it yet. I can tell it's being directed by Martin Scorsese.
Ew.
Nice.
Just tighten it up. We'll wait.
Yeah. You don't really have. That's the beautiful thing about Martin Scorsese is you don't really have to say much more than that to promote a project.
Yeah.
I don't know the man really, but I know he talks real fast. I'm kind of like a friend of mine who's in his 70s. He said, I'm not trying to build a resume. I'm trying to milk one.
Yeah. That you've given us at least 7 bumper stickers
Right.
during this interview.
I'm telling you,
that
man.
need to be printed.
Yes.
Before we go, is there? This is the last question. Do you have any parting words that you'd like to leave the audience with?
Well, y'all just keep watching because I'm not going to go anywhere. I'm in it for the long haul. I'm 80 years old, but I'm going to keep going till I can't remember my lines or hit my marks.
Nice.
I love it. Hey man, I'm not just saying this. This has been one of the best interviews ever. I don't even feel like I'm interviewing an actor. I'm interviewing a human being who really just sees life the way it should be seen. So this has been an honor for me. I appreciate it.
Well, we're just having a conversation. Let's have another one pretty soon.
All right. Hey,
Yeah,
you said it. And
after that Scorsese picture drops, we'll be in touch.
All right. Yeah. As soon as you hear what it is, then let me know, and then we'll talk about it.
yes,
Okay,
sir.
that
Yes,
sounds
that's a
good.
plan. Barry, thank you so much for taking the time out of
Yes.
your day. We greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Corbin. It was an honor talking to you.
Well, it's my pleasure. It's been a fun hour.
There you go.
Yeah.
In and out.
Tight. Thank you very much.
I appreciate it.
Hey, cowboy up.
All right. I'm gonna take a ride.
Yes, sir. I saved that.
Have a good night.
All right. Good night.
Why don't you subscribe? It'll last longer.